I basically saw this when it comes to the sacrifice, and I was like, okay, this is an interesting game, seemingly. So yeah, the sacrifice review by MandaloreGaming. Real-time strategy, I'm guessing, and like... what the fuck is this setting, man? But yeah, let's let Mandalore walk us into this one. Yeah, other than what I'm seeing right now, I have never heard about this game or played it or like or seen it or heard it. But there are people in the chat, not just strategy, you will see, but there are people in the chat who supposedly played this one, so it's not like I don't think it's like super underground like some of the shit he reviews. Like I think Genesis Rising, for example, was super underground, like RTS. Or like that one King Arthur game, I completely forgot what it's called. That one King Arthur game he played, and he said he only played it because the box art looked cool, and he picked it up in a thrift store or something. Mana pimping, what the fuck? It is pretty underground. I just play a lot of those obscure strategy games. Okay, that could explain it.
The pain.
Great start.
Back when I played Overlord, I thought the minions were fun.
Oh yeah, I think that's...
I wished I had more control over them. That's when a lot of people started...
No, I don't think that's the game I talked about. What the fuck was that King Arthur game he played, man?
Emailing me about Sacrifice. I had not heard much about it, and not for years. The short version is that it's a third-person game where you play as a spellcasting wizard. Much about it, and not...
Hey, that looks like that bug from Half-Life 1. Like, even the sack under it.
Them. That's when a lot of people started emailing me about Sacrifice. I had not heard much about it, and not for years. The short version is that it's a third-person game where you play as a spellcasting wizard, but...
It's a third-person... What the fuck? This map looks like it's a strategy. Holy shit. That is actually bonkers that it's not a strategy game and like more of a... I mean, still strategy, but you know what I'm saying. It's not an RTS.
It's also an RTS game, with all the...
Okay, it's... What is happening? Hello? I'm fucking getting gotcha'd by the video, bro. I'm getting gotcha'd by the fucking developers of this. Like, they were setting up this bit long in advance, it seems.
In-depth formations and controls you'd expect from one. The campaign has a bizarrely high-profile cast, and Tim Curry plays a god.
24 souls. That should do nicely.
Alright, but first we have work to do. The good news is that trying the GOG copy, it did work immediately, but it's locked in 4x3 and locked at 30 FPS, not to mention the resolution is pretty low. Well, by using the ever-reliable DG Voodoo wrapper, the frame rate and resolution unlock and it runs great. Except I can't record it now. Some old games are like a deep-sea fish. Sure, you can go and visit the fish in its habitat, but try to bring it up to the surface and sometimes it explodes. So I did some tweaking. I barely remember to record it properly, but you don't need to do all that. This is good, but now the icons are stretched out. Luckily, Sacrifice has an easy to install widescreen fix. Normally this should be the end of it, but there's one more crucial step. DG Voodoo unlocked the frame rate completely, but now you need to cap it back to 60. If you dare to run the game above that, the enemy AI breaks down. They'll just sit there and not do anything. Now you're done, but there is...
I always get curious about these bugs tied to frame rates. We talked about like the new update to Risk of Rain introduced game speed is tied to frame rate, so if you run it at like a 200 FPS you're getting 4 times the normal speed. But like for games like this it's more understandable because it's a single player game, I think. maybe it has like PvP, but still that's such a bizarre bug that frames break the game's AI. What is the correlation there, man? Holy.
There's one more catch. For reasons that I don't and cannot fully understand, sometimes when you relaunch the game it resets your textures down to low. Being an older game where you manage a lot of units, it can be easy to miss this. I ended up having to re-record a lot of stuff to avoid the issue, so if things suddenly look blurrier for no reason, that's what's happening. The same thing seems to have hit other people trying to upload footage of the game too, so I feel less crazy. The main menus stay at a super low resolution too, so it is hard to tell when you relaunch it. So now we can see whether or not it was worth jumping through all these hoops.
Has begun.
You're too late again, Master. All dead.
I begin to think the cause of this destruction cannot be other than myself.
Master.
My dark experiments come to a most wicked end.
The intro reminds me a lot of Legacy of Kain. The atmosphere is dark and moody, and it looks like you might be playing the villain. I cut this down for time, but there are shots of just fields and fields of corpses. And my Kain meter keeps getting higher.
It seems you are to be my salvation after all.
Man, that's some quality voice acting. Holy.
I am no one's salvation. I am a pawn of doom itself.
What?
What the fucking... The voice acting is so good. And then like the facial animations are like...
You speak in riddles, sir. I wonder if even my wisdom can decipher them.
It can't. So you go off to visit the gods. Playing as the Wandering Wizard Eldred, your services are very in demand. From here the story can start diverging, so I'll save all that for later. Let's get into the game. Graphically, for a game from 2000, this is really impressive. It's not the best visuals of the time or anything, but more of the scale they're operating on. These can be big maps, and each faction can bring dozens of units to a fight. Then you combine that with all the magic effects and the terrain battle scarring like blood and craters, and it's kind of amazing this worked at all. The maps are simple, but the art style and the surreal nature of all of it really do go a long way. Some will have...
Man, this fucking... I see this and I'm like, I think to myself, I could really go for a run of Oblivion right about now.
These swirling California brushfire skies that are gorgeous to look at in their own weird way. Usually the atmosphere is oppressive, which is appropriate since Sacrifice takes place in a world that was shattered into floating islands. The balance of magic, or whatever the hell, has already shit the bed hard. This world is apocalyptic and you're constantly reminded of it. You could say the terrain is still too simple and lacks detail, and I would agree. Except this land is all made to be broken. This isn't the kind of magic where you have a sparkle gun that'll get through airport security. Casting a spell in Sacrifice usually ends with a National Remembrance Day and a federal holiday. Hey, remember when that wizard came and casted a fucking volcano? Remember the Wall of Screaming Souls? You're not casting magic, you're committing magic, and that's how I like it. The magic look...
Okay, committing magic goes hard. The surreal aspects of Sacrifice are some of the best parts. The world is just so insane. It reminds me of American McGee's Alice. Yeah, the world and the creatures and the setup, they are wildly original from the looks of it.
and acts perfectly devastating, and there are tons of spells to learn. Looking at the art style, I find it hard to describe. Everything is surreal fantasy, but twisted in dark ways with a bit of humor. I don't know enough about art for this, so I think it looks like a cross between H.R. Giger and a Courage the Cowardly Dog episode. All of the magic and...
It's kinda like Pathologic, but with less industry and more color. Like, somehow that seems like just the right analog. You know, an oppressive atmosphere with just like a sick twist of something actually fucking funny happening.
units are aligned to a god in this pantheon, which again I'll come back to. But to pick one out, there's Persephone, the goddess of life and good and justice, so she has nature units like an Ent, or a mutant abomination begging for death.
My life is yours.
How about the troll? Don't be afraid of the troll, this is a force for good. Yeah, this is the face of life and justice. Every god's units are like this, and no matter what generic fantasy name it has, you'll have no clue what to expect. For example, a Yeti. You know what a Yeti is. Probably.
A fairy moth-like creature appears for a little over 3 seconds.
Well, in Sacrifice, this Tickle-Me necromorph is a Yeti. No matter which god you worship, its servants are...
That looks like a fucking golem, not a Yeti. God damn.
...a legion of nightmares, which I do appreciate. The villains don't outstyle the forces of good. Everyone is equally unwell. Everything is so rich in color and style. Many years have passed, and it still remains incredibly unique. There's so much variety, and I kept wanting to see more of what was out there. As you might expect, there is a soundscape to complement this. The actual battle and interface effects are stock, but not always what you'd expect.
Your creatures are under attack.
Okay, apparently that's a fucking firing squad. What the fuck? I really missed these visual styles. Retro games go for pixel art or something cartoon, or maybe like a PS1 polygonal look, but no kind of like no game goes for this like old RTS style. Warcraft was also like very kind of like this, as in it was like really colorful, and it was like some missions were completely fucked up and some of the situations were like completely screwed, and the colors were uncharacteristically like bright and welcoming and everything. I get what you mean. Like some old RTSs had this like very, very specific feel. And yeah, it's definitely like indie games that try to replicate old styles usually go for something like much different, but could be cool to get an RTS indie game in this style.
But the environmental effects like storms and wind are surprisingly crisp. They're not amazing or anything, but they make the lull before the fighting that much more tense. However, the music can be just as varied as its visuals. The soundtrack ranges from powerful orchestra scores to what I can only call Godzilla music.
That is definitely what I would call Godzilla music. Holy shit.
You are Group 4. Guard me.
When you look at something like this, you have to fucking wonder, where did the inspiration for this come from, man? The way some of the units move is so goofy. I love it. Man, I fucking knew I wasn't alone when I brought up pathologic. There is something there, man. There's the same kind of mental illness in the developer's mind.
Once again, it's unique stuff. I do wish there was more of it, since you'll be hearing the same thing a lot, but what is here is really good.
Attack! No survivors!
Of course, the voice acting especially deserves a mention. The cast for the campaign is huge, and all the voice work is excellent, and it's paired up with compelling dialogue. Like, Sacrifice has loading screens I found more interesting than cutscenes in some other games.
No pursuit was too perilous, no sacrifice too great, until, well, under the many heavens and in the many worlds, there are darker things than men may dream of.
I wasn't prepared for that with promotional images like this.
What the fuck? This game, I swear to God.
Charno, god of strife, god of slaughter, god of death. Where there is pain, I am there. Where there is suffering, I flourish. Where there is joy, yes, well, one could hardly have joy without another's suffering, no?
It feels worth it to play through the missions just to hear more of what the gods have to say and to see them bicker with each other. It adds a lot of replayability to the campaign as well, since you'll see the gods interact with each other in new ways. As for the units, I'm not kidding when I say I think the lines might have been assigned at random. They are so bizarre.
Move! Move! Aha! La 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 la!
I live.
I'm the fastest.
Executing orders!
Some voices are fitting and others are flat out a joke. The more I played and the more insane designs I saw, the more I realized that was a very good call. Each unit has layers of unexpected chaos. So presentation-wise, I've never played anything quite like it. It should come as no surprise that the gameplay itself is also incredibly interesting. As far as a strategy game goes, you don't have too many resources.
Man,
the gameplay.
Like seriously, I see those buildings and I see that texture quality. This is literally, like, if you removed the HUD elements, you could fucking trick somebody that this is Morrowind, bro. Holy shit.
Itself is also incredibly interesting. As far as a strategy game goes, you don't have too many resources to manage. To start with the playable wizard, you have your health and your mana, along with a pile of souls. Your life bar is straightforward, you can heal yourself up with spells, and there's not much to talk about. Mana is where things become more complicated. It's used to cast spells and summon creatures, and it regens on its own, kind of. There's a magic supply chain. The maps have fountains of grade A Colombian magic. To tap into one, you need to build a manolith on top of it. This gives you a steady stream of the JK rolling juice and denies it to your enemy, but the magic must then be transferred to you through creatures called mana whores.
The first type of creature we will need is a mana whore.
Okay.
The more of these little pots of greed you have near you, the faster your mana regen.
Like, you can't even make a joke because they were just so honest about it, you know? You're like, what kind of a fucking joke can you make when they're actually called mana whores?
They're weak and completely defenseless, so if they die out in a fight, you don't have any more magic coming in. So having lots of magic homes and a magic harem keeps your big blue bar beefy. However, the little guys aren't free and each costs a single soul. Souls are your money and there's no way to infinitely tap into them. When your own troops die, they leave blue souls behind that you can pick up. It's as simple as just running over them. Red enemy souls are a different problem, as they must first be cleansed of sin. To do this, you summon a special sack doctor onto the enemy soul. They come out of a portal, run up with their big syringe, and then begin the soul extraction process. When it's extracted, they'll be carried off to your altar, which is basically your headquarters. From here, the souls are properly purified and then can be welcomed as part of the Chosen. This is a battle of attrition. There are only so many souls in a fight. You have enemy forces and some neutral villagers. The more powerful units cost more souls to summon, but represent a new liability. Your hard-earned spirits could get yoinked from you. So when you get in a fight, you're also trying to collect the enemy's dead and preserve your own. You could escort your sack doctors all the way back to your altar, but that can be a long way. There is an option that instead of building a manolith, you can build a shrine. Now you have a forward operating base for the holy rituals. You can also make an enemy soul good if you just kill them hard enough. Nothing makes you repent like being atomized. The system keeps the game very action-oriented. You're never worrying about workers or really your economy in general. Fighting, killing, and gathering resources are all basically the same thing. If you die or kill an enemy wizard, you will respawn after a while, but you'll lose all the souls you were carrying. As the game goes on and more corpses are controlled, someone will get the upper hand. It does a good job of keeping things simple, since the shrine and manolith are the only buildings you can make. You can't build turrets on them, but you can leash a creature to one. You can fortify a point or go on a risky offensive against one, but again, souls are the investment. The focus is kept on the action, and the strategy layer is never overwhelming.
The fucking way they carry around those souls is so funny. This is the kind of game where I think those names are exactly what they sound like. Oh yeah, it's written mana whore. So it's possible they were going for like a mana hoarder, but come on man, they had to know. Like, listen to the voiced lines and you instantly know what they were going for. There is like no room for interpretation here.
With an interactive minimap you can issue commands on and a teleport spell to your structures, you'll be fine. To wipe the enemy out completely, you'll need to go to their altar, sacrifice a unit, and then kill their wizard. If the ritual's not interrupted and the caster dies, it's game over. Their altar then begins to Gmod collision glitch into the sky, and you win. With that done, that brings us to the combat focus. How do you control a game like this? It is awkward at first, but once you learn your way around it, it is really intuitive. There's even a hotkey to assign a hotkey to whatever your mouse is over. It makes it easy to change things around on the fly.
Cool.
The keyboard is mainly used for grouping units and using abilities like any other RTS game, but you still have your cursor to interact with icons and units on the screen directly. For unit formations, you can hold right-click and expand out into different menus and icons. This is known as the mouse gesture control system. It was highly praised as revolutionary and innovative when Black and White 1 did it a year later.
Oh, we got this notion that we quite like to sell the
20 years. I've had this song stuck in my head for 20 years. So, it makes controlling everything no problem. At least when you're organizing your army, because when the fighting starts, things get chaotic. You want to manage your units to make sure they're in position to fight weaker counterparts, but you're also managing yourself and your own spells, and you're casting support stuff on your people and on yourself because you don't want to die. And all the while you're keeping an eye out for souls and the enemy wizard, and there's a lot going on in every battle. Your troops are smart enough to where they'll move and hunt down targets on their own, but they'll always be more effective with you controlling them. There's a lot to manage at once, and sometimes magic or monsters will take a higher priority. But there are players out there that are insanely good at microing this game, and I'd like to see those matches. Sure, you have active spells, but some of your units do too. In a skirmish or multiplayer match, what abilities and monsters you have can be picked up.
Oh, so there is multiplayer. I mean, it's a fucking kind of a strategy game, so you would assume there is multiplayer.
Spellbook. Having 9 levels of power with 5 choices each, there's a lot of room to experiment. While the units are broken down into 3 main types, melee, ranged, and flying, each god gives them their own little quirks, like Charnel's undead healing by attacking, or any other little ability a unit might have. Yet, again, it's never too overwhelming. Sacrifice's gameplay kind of sounds like it should be a mess, but it's really competent and fun. They gave it just the right amount of mechanical depth. It's a properly fleshed out strategy and action game. Not too simple, but also not so overwhelming that only StarCraft experts could play it. Sadly, the multiplayer is pretty dead, though there are skirmish maps, so we can move on to the campaign.
Persephone, what good is a holy warrior without a holy war?
How like you, Charnel.
Myself, I would sooner suspect Charnel. You do have a certain taste for destruction, don't you?
This is a story that you don't
fucking balloon head god is my favorite.
Need to pop open the manual for, but it does give some additional context. The short version is, while the planet was intact and not floating islands, there was a single god. A demon tore open a portal to Hell, and then God lost that war. Hell has won, and the new pantheon of gods sort of just appeared. It does explain why the creatures look like melted Gorgonites. Hell is a base template for life here. It's a 10-mission campaign, but each god has 9 unique missions, so you can replay for 45 unique missions and then the final battle. You choose which of the gods you want to serve. There's Persephone again. Then you have James, the god of Earth, who's a giant worm. It's some kind of in-joke or nod to the developer's Earthworm Jim series.
I am James, god of Earth. You know, rocks and soil and stuff. Some nice gems, too. Oh, it's not all brown and gray, you know. Just mostly.
Then you have Stratos, god of the air and the heavens. Tim Curry went from blowing up spooky balloons to being one.
Oh, let's to be honest, shall we? In any halfway civilized world, I would be the only god.
It seems the pantheon of gods gets more evil the more to the right you go. Persephone and James care about life on the earth, but Stratos is between good and evil. He goes where the wind takes him and seems to not care about the brewing tensions. Funnily enough, this isn't Tim Curry's only appearance in a weird hybrid RTS game.
Oh, you think she is the grand demon witch? The white-winged death?
Pyro is the god of fire. The forces of good have also declared him the god of chaos and pollution and gas and waste, but he claims to be an avatar of industry and knowledge.
I intend to build factories in the Davin Forest, which is a haven for antiquated druidic thinking. All who do not flee will be enriched by my triumph. You, not least of all.
Oh no, you don't need to convince me. I'm down to enrich some druids. Finally, you have
Bro representing the big industry.
Charnel, who is comically evil.
It is time I reopened the demon gate of Golgotha.
Okay, but he does give reasons why he's not the big villain and doesn't want to destroy the world.
Let me assure you, I do not want to destroy the world. That's where all the best slaughter takes place, you know.
Can't really argue with that. As for the wizard Eldred, he's responsible for destroying his own home. He was a powerful man there and summoned a demon to destroy his enemies. Of course, it went wildly out of control and destroyed everything. Magic might be partly derived from gods, I'm not entirely sure how it works. I don't know much about spells or witchcraft in the real world either. My latest insight on that front comes from a local bookstore. They moved their witchcraft and spirituality section closer to the counter because it was by far the most shoplifted section of the store. I guess they can't conjure dead presidents yet. What's cool about the campaign is that there are choices to make here and there. These can slightly alter your goals, your dialogue, and some buffs you get. Naturally, you sometimes have additional side objectives as well. This is neat agency stuff on its own, but you also have a choice in what missions you want to do. Doing a job for them will give you some of their spells and units. You could go full monogod, or pursue a mix of favors. If you anger one too much, they might not offer you a mission anymore, unless you help out an ally or a story event happens. There's good banter in between the missions, and it's always fun to see the gods spat with each other.
Why should they continue to suffer for the comfort of savage and brutish beings like the trolls?
I see only one savage and brutish being here.
Come now, you mustn't forget me.
Everyone wait. Haven't we all had enough of wars?
No.
The final mission is always the same, but what I like...
Okay, now I can decide who's more based between all of them, because they all each bring up some good points, you know?
Is that the game picks your motivation based on your mission choices. Were you helping a benevolent patron trying to find redemption, or were you helping a demon lord burn stuff down because you've accepted your place? The very end has a final choice as well, where you can react to the narrative you got. With such variety, the campaign's difficulties are all over the place, but it's a fun ride and you can try different paths to learn more about the world. I didn't find the deeper parts of the lore to be too captivating, but it was an interesting puzzle to put together. The dialogue writing is excellent and really does elevate its setting. The campaign has a good variety of different maps and objectives, but again your mileage may vary depending on what you pick. Sacrifice also has the funniest, maybe most direct escort mission line in a video game.
Go to my altar, or I will kill you all.
That's worth a mention. This is an incredibly unique game. It has elements of all kinds of games that would come later. There are multiplayer modes that have like the primordial soup of MOBAs in it. Sacrifice is like a game from a different timeline. It had an expansion planned but just sold too poorly. I keep imagining what if this game blew up, what would have come after? The issue is that while the mechanics and ideas were well thought out, it seems like the game itself isn't quite there. They were pushing the technology and it does show. You'll see the animations freak out from time to time. How you move through the map feels like breaking it sometimes. It's clear that systems like AI weren't all there and there are interface improvements that could be made. But these are mainly consequences of it just being an old game that was very ambitious. You do have to do some work for the best experience, but I do recommend this game. This is one of those titles that I would love to see get the HD remaster treatment. If it had proper polish and better AI, the fights could be less chaotic. Even just having multiplayer back would be nice. I would love to see how people now play Sacrifice. That's all for now. Until next time.
All of your mana whores have been slaughtered.
Oh my god, it's a disaster. I never want to play it again.
Yes, would you stop that? I'm really not in the mood.
Man, I agree with Mandalore. I want, like, now holy shit, I would want to see this game, like, remastered or remade with, revitalized multiplayer, because holy shit, this is one unique ass game, you know. That voice is also familiar. Yeah, there's like a lot of kind of familiar voice acting in this one. So weird. Also, yeah, in general the voice acting was fucking great. Holy. Unfortunately, most games that get remade are already great. Obscure, flawed gems do not print money. Yeah, that is fucking tragic. I mean, there are some exceptions to that rule, like Pathologic 2 is basically a remake of Pathologic 1. And we gotten it only because, like, it generated such a dedicated ass cult following, so... And Pathologic 1 is like the very definition of obscure flawed gem, so... And yeah, that was The Sacrifice by MandaloreGaming. For people watching later on YouTube, thank you very much for watching, and you know, subscribe, like if you want to see more reactions like this one. And as always, all the links are in the description for like Mandalore's channel and so forth. So yeah, thank you very much for watching.